What's going on, everyone? Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Everything Vive. I am Zane here with Ronnie. Ronnie, how's it going, man?
It's going great. How's your week been?
It's been a long week coming back from the holidays, but we're here. It's Friday. Lots of VR stuff happening, and yeah, we're in for another game talk.
Let's do it.
All right. Well, you want to go first, or should I go first this time?
Yeah, I can go first. That's fine. Yeah, the game I wanted to cover today, real quick, was Eagle Flight, and I want to preface this by saying that I still have, I've just kind of started to dabble in the game. I haven't finished it. I've only played probably about, a little under an hour so far. But I feel like that's given me enough time to kind of get the basic mechanics down and kind of give my impressions on at least what the game environment's like and kind of what I feel about my one of my first experiences with the AAA VR title.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, right off the bat, I want to preface this by saying that in addition to what I just said, that this is a $40 game, so the price is pretty steep. As far as most VR experiences go.
Yeah.
But when I was kind of, looking into whether I wanted to pick it up or pick something else up, I knew that I've been wanting to try. I had heard about this game for a while now, and it's, one of Ubisoft's first releases on the Vive in the Steam store. So I definitely wanted to at least check it out to see if, it ended up panning out into something worthwhile, or if, it was just, kind of a misguided effort on their part and too expensive. But I do think it's actually pretty cool. And I would say that, if it's going to take, a bit more cost as far as, paying a little bit more for some of these titles in order to give them that extra sense of polish and kind of, I guess the best word would be scope.
Okay.
To get games with a larger sense of scope, then yeah, it's probably worth it. I mean, gameplay wise, I don't know that it's any more complicated per se than a lot of the other cheaper titles out there, but I think that extra funding goes to making the experience just feel a little bit more grand and a little bit more finished. So as far as that goes, I think Eagle Flight's great. I mean, just to give a little background, you're basically, it sounds like a funny premise, and it's definitely different than what I thought initially it was going to be, but you're essentially an eagle that lives in a post-apocalyptic Paris.
Oh, I didn't know it was post-apocalyptic. I remember hearing that you fly over Paris. That's all.
Yeah, so I mean, basically we're talking Paris, and I mean, I'm sure they do that to get around having to populate it with people and all that kind of thing. But basically, you're looking at Paris in the future, most likely, where, there's no, I don't think they actually give a date, but basically, there's no longer people there. We don't know why, as far as I know. And things are just kind of overgrown, and the city's been taken over by various animals. So there's buildings and all the structures that you would relate to Paris. I'm not sure exactly how accurate it is because I'm not super familiar with Paris myself, but a lot of the big monuments are there, like the Eiffel Tower, Notre Dame. I'm trying to think what else, the Louvre,
Mm-hmm.
like all these different, monuments, landmarks. Yeah, they're there. And in general, the city is really large. And then, like I said, it's overrun with vegetation and such. And there's, like wild animals living there. So, I mean, we're talking elephants and bears and
Wow.
zebras and yeah. So that's because before they kind of gave you that introduction, I was kind of thinking to myself, I wonder if eagles actually live in Paris, but that's kind of how they explain it away. I think is that, this is a future where animals have kind of taken over. So
can you fly near or land on the ground and like see these animals up close?
Yeah. So that's kind of one of the, not complaints, but one of the issues I've had so far is that you are always pretty much in constant motion, at least as far as I've experienced so far.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there are times where the camera's frozen For example, like at the beginning of a mission or something, you'll just be kind of looking around, on a pivot point. But in general, once the game actually starts, uh, you're always moving and it's always flying, and you don't land or anything like that. It's basically moving forward at a certain pace, and you can. And that's another thing to mention is that you have to have a controller. At least right now you do. There's no
Oh,
reason.
you don't use the Vive controllers?
No, there's no reason
Okay.
why they couldn't, honestly. And I saw some people in the Steam store kind of complaining about that a little bit because I mean the only thing you use on the controller right now is you use one of the triggers to speed up and one of the triggers to slow down, and that's it. So literally, you're talking
Huh.
two buttons, and I don't know if because the triggers are analog, if for some reason, but I would think that analog. There's definitely ways I would think to get around that using the Vive. I mean, you could even use one Vive controller trigger for speed up and one for speed down. I would think, and it would probably be the same. But I mean, you control the movement with your head. So in terms of direction, you look around, and that determines what direction you go.
Gotcha.
And then
Okay.
you just use the two triggers to speed up or slow down. And then there's other things in the environment that can also speed you up, like little like vortex looking things that if you or when you're going through rings, if you go through them near the middle, that'll kind of give you another speed boost. But that's pretty much the basics as far as movement goes. And another kind of annoying thing I'd say about the movement for me was that it kept wanting the game constantly reminds me to tilt my head rather than just look right or left. And I guess that sounds like that's like a more normal thing for Oculus games or games that aren't room scale is to kind of tilt your head sideways rather than turning it around in order to like speed up
Turn?
turns. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. Like I said, I could be completely wrong on that in terms of that being something more normal for Oculus users. I saw a mention of that in one of the Steam reviews I had seen. But I know for me personally, it was just a little annoying because it makes it faster. So when you tilt your head, it turns quite a bit quicker and more sharp. So I get it. Totally makes sense that it should be there as a mechanic, so that when you really need that sharp, precise turn that you can do it. But but there were a lot of instances where I didn't need to turn that sharp. And for me, it was more comfortable to just look right or left slowly. And I was still getting, the amount of turning that I wanted.
Yeah.
But whenever I would do that, a big indicator in the middle of the screen would pop up saying, "Hey, dude, it's more comfortable to tilt your head, tilt your head, tilt
Wow.
your head."
Talk about breaking the immersion, huh?
Yeah. So I was just like, dude, I like every single time that would pop up, I would just be thinking, it's not more comfortable to tilt my head. I'll tilt my head if I want to tilt my head to turn sharper, but right now I'm good. Like, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to look. I didn't see anything in the options to turn that off. And maybe it'll lessen over time as I play it more and more. Once it realizes that I'm kind of out of that, like I should be out of the tutorial mode by now, because I was doing missions and everything. But
So actually, I want to stop there. Like, I mean, what are these missions? You're an eagle. I'm just curious because I didn't really know what the game entailed. I heard that there was you fly over Paris, but what
yeah,
are the
yeah.
missions?
I mean, so far most of them has been collecting stuff and like going through rings and that sort of thing. I mean, I will say that the environment's really like well designed. It's really complex. So using those speed up, slow down mechanics, you can like if you go down near the street level of the city, then you're gonna be going through a lot of like trees and buildings and stuff like that, and it's kind of more complicated to get around. And because you're always moving, it's like you want to avoid crash. If you hit something, you crash, you're done, and it kind of goes to black and then starts you
Okay.
back. So your goal is really not to hit anything, but at the same time, you can go through little tunnels in between buildings, and I mean, that aspect is really cool. Like I said, the city is, I mean, compared to a lot of the other, I mean, a good example is, I mean, obviously, because this is a huge development team, like comparing it to Richie's Plank experience or something like that. I mean, this city is a million times more detailed than something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Okay.
there's a lot of cool aspects regarding that, and it did, and I would say that using your head as a movement device does work in the event, because like once an event will start, it'll kind of set you down a specific path more than just like in my experience with the game so far, free form just flying around feels less exciting than actually doing the missions,
Gotcha.
because
Okay.
once they put you in, like when you're just free flying, I'd say the sense of immersion is like, I mean, I wouldn't say the sense of immersion is off, but I would say it doesn't feel super fast, and it doesn't really like
Does it feel a
what
little
I
aimless?
yeah, a little. It does feel aimless, and just I think because of the lack of focus, like I personally didn't feel like I was moving as fast, and that I was
Okay.
really actually in the air. I Something that I'm noticing is like with games that have this type of distance, is that things in the like far distance don't seem as three-dimensional and actually there to me as some things that are more close up in VR. And I don't know if that's because of just the way the lenses work or what, but like in a game like Richie's Plank Experience, even though it's like, smaller scale and closer up, I think things that tend, if you're looking more like close by, things tend to feel more real. And if you're looking kind of
Yeah.
really far in the distance, they kind of look flat and like not, until you get closer up to it, not really. So like I said, I don't know if that's just a limitation of the hardware right now or what, but so like in some of those, in when I'm just free flying, I tend to be higher up and looking really far away in the distance, and it kind of feels like a video game to me. Whereas some of the challenge missions where they kind of start you down on the ground level and you're going through tons of like, vegetation and tunnels and this and that, and you're focused to go through different hoops that they have placed.
Mm-hmm.
That felt a lot more fast and real, and like I was dodging things,
Yeah.
and that was more engaging to me. So
Okay.
I but yeah, overall though, I think it's really cool. And I mean, they do give you a lot to do just in terms of, I mean, the missions might sound pretty basic, but because the environment's so big and it is pretty detailed, it has kind of a cartoony kind of look to it, but it's detailed enough to where like if you're not, looking, like it does feel pretty realistic, and there is a lot to look at. Um,
Yeah.
so all that stuff, all that said, it's definitely really cool, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it. I think
Well,
it's
and
one of those.
I
Oh,
was
go ahead.
I was just saying also the fact that you said you played about an hour and you've only kind of scratched the surface. So there does seem
Yep.
to be some depth in terms of
Yeah,
gameplay
and there's
timing.
and what I played was just the story mode, so far, and it's kind of neat because it has a narrator, and it feels like you're in a documentary almost. Like at
Oh,
least at the
cool.
beginning it
Okay.
did. So like they have a narrator and talking about eagles, living in this version of Paris and blah blah blah, and it kind of, yeah, it just kind of gives it a neat vibe. And then there is multiplayer, and I did try to play multiplayer, but at least when I was playing, there weren't really any people that it was connecting me with, and
Gotcha. Okay.
it claims that it connected me to one person, but then when I was actually playing, I never saw that person anywhere, and it didn't. But I mean, based on what I played briefly, that seems like I was just playing by myself. It looks like the multiplayer is some form of like, basically it'll give you a target, like there'll be a big beam saying, oh, there's an animal carcass over here, go get that, like it'll be like a dead rabbit or something, go get that rabbit and then bring it back to your nest, and there'll be like a big beam showing you where the rabbit is. You go, it looks like there'll be two teams, like a red team and a blue team, and each one has three players on it. And the eagles are all trying to go get that carcass and then try to bring it back to your nest, and you get a point. And it looks like, and my guess would be that if you're actually playing with people, that they can probably try to take that carcass from you once you get it.
Oh, okay. It's not
And
like
and it's kind
cooperative.
of, No, well, I don't know how the co-op would work if it does, like because it is 3-on-3. So maybe you could pass it to each of your teammates.
Interesting.
I
Okay.
don't know, but I mean, it does seem like it could be fun because the flying mechanics are interesting. So if you're able to kind of I don't know, use shortcuts and stuff to get to the carcass faster, and then kind of cut other players off to try to take it from them or whatever. It seems like it would be fun. It's just I don't really I try not to read about other people's experience and try to play it on my own. So I I just was having trouble connecting. So that was the extent of my playtime with it, was just basically flying around the map by myself with this supposed player with me. That I never saw.
Yeah.
And then I just went and collected the carcass and brought it back to my nest 2 or 3 times. And okay, I get it. And then, so I'm going to have to try again when, hopefully more people are online to see how that goes. But
Cool, cool. Well, I'll check that out. I'm kind of wary of stuff that still uses controllers. Like I really love using the Vive controllers when I can.
yeah,
So we'll see.
yeah.
It sounds cool.
I mean,
Maybe I'll just come try it at your place first before
yeah, no,
grabbing it.
it's neat, but like me personally, I mean, it could be worth $40 if you're really going to put the time into it. But if you're not super excited about the game already, I'd say just kind of hold out, keep track of it. And if it goes on sale, it's definitely worth, it's definitely worth the money if you like that type of experience.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're not sure, just wait for it to go on sale. And that, if it was 50% off or something, if it was like $20, I'd say, oh, for sure, go for it. Just the production values alone, and just it is a kind of a unique experience. So it's cool on that front. So
Gotcha. Cool, man. Well, my game is definitely not as in depth as that, but I covered, or not. I don't want to say I covered. I played The Price of Freedom, and it's a free experience. Surprisingly, because it's actually very well polished. And there's only about maybe 20 minutes of gameplay max. But I think what's really cool about it is somebody went in and developed a solid storyline. And the gameplay it's very much puzzle solving, escape the room type of gameplay. But in terms of like lack of interactiveness, like there's no teleporting around. Like you kind of are just placed in the different environments that you're supposed to be in. And then they kind of, or they just appear around you, but there's several different environments, and you follow this story. You're an undercover assassin trying to take out somebody who has been leaking documents for the U.S. government. And so, I mean, I don't want to get too far into it because the storyline is like the best part of it, and so, but it's really cool. Like it kind of came out of nowhere. Another thing that I saw on Reddit, or another game that I saw on Reddit that I thought was worth checking out, just because it had such positive reviews. And I mean, it's funny because like the only negative reviews people give it, and like they even put this caveat because it's not a negative review. It's like, I just wish it was longer. It's like, but
yeah,
it's so short, but it's free that I can't give it a negative review. It's just really cool.
that's really cool.
So, I don't know. I'd love to get those guys on the show just to figure out how, or just to, find out how the, just how the development for it worked. Because even if they're short, like 20-minute experiences like that, if it's free, or even, I guess on a cheaper level, like those experiences are really cool. And, the replay value is actually not for yourself, but being able to show it to someone else, because it's in about 15 to 20 minutes. Somebody can go through that game. And, I had a friend over who's staying over, and she had played all of the kind of arcadey stuff that we had and all the stuff that we usually show at a, at like a regular Vive party or whatever you call those. And the thing's like, she was the only one here. So I was like, okay, well, why don't I show you some more in-depth stuff? So I showed her the Vertigo demo, which was cool. But then I also showed her this one, and she really liked it. And she's like, I showed her Budget Cuts, Vertigo, and this one. And so, yeah, I mean, as soon as she started playing those, and again, like these are shorter, 15 to 20 minute experiences, but they can, they're still bite size, but they can still be consumed. And they're much more in depth than just playing, I don't want to call out any other games by name, but stuff that just has a more arcadey feel to it. Let's just say, I'll call out the lab because I love the lab, but the lab is designed to be a set of mini games. You can only play longbow or the other things in there for so long before you want to move on to something else.
Yeah,
and so you know what I mean. And so
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so I like it in that aspect because there is a complete sense to it. It follows a solid storyline, and I want to say it puts you in 3 to 4 or maybe 4 to 5 different environments total. And I mean the puzzles aren't overly difficult to solve, but you have full interactiveness with the environment, and you have to like find tools to be able to solve different. Okay, I'm not even going to get into it, but like you have full interactiveness with the environment, which is something akin to the gallery or budget cuts in terms of interactiveness, where everything is kind of like at your disposal, even stuff that you can't use, and that actually just again adds to the whole immersion aspect of it.
That makes a big difference for me. I know in games I've played is being able to feel like you can kind of mess around with anything, and because then when you do mess around with something you're supposed to be messing around with, it feels like it's an actual real interaction rather than something that was just placed there just for you.
Yeah, exactly. So
no, that sounds really cool, and I hear you 100% on. There's something to being able to play something, and feel like you actually finished it and experience something, and you can kind of wrap your head, like you said, like you go away from a game like the lab, and I love the lab. Don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like a never ending. You feel like, oh, that was awesome, and but you always feel like there's something more. Like you can only play it so long because to an extent you don't really have a real end goal to it. Whereas if you have something like that, at least you like a short 15-minute experience. While it might be short, also feels like you walk away if you enjoyed your experience very satisfied. And I think having something like a 15-minute experience is perfect for showing people because they're able to go from beginning to end and really like understand what it was about that experience that is cool. So
yeah, and I mean if you have a smaller group, like I think it's still fun, like for other people to be able to watch what's happening. You don't. It doesn't need to necessarily be just showing one person at a time, because once you go through the storyline, then obviously like the the most important or the most essential part is essentially spoiled for everyone else. But I think maybe even having others to help you solve and go through it would be cool too. Because like when my friend was going over it, it was. Like, anytime she gets stuck, I'd be like, oh, well, you're getting hotter, you're getting colder. Like, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, it's really cool. Excuse me. It's really cool and it's free. So I just want to recommend it for everyone out there. Like if you have a Vive, or I think it's available for Oculus Touch. I don't want to, I'm not sure, but if you have a Vive, for sure, it's available, and it's definitely worth checking out. And I think even if you just play it once, it's cool. I think again it highlights the best parts of the Vive and the best features of the Vive in terms of
Very
full
cool.
room scale and full full interactiveness.
On real quick on that, just because I didn't mention it when I was talking about Eagle Flight, for any Oculus users that might be listening to our podcast, it is available on Oculus. However, you have to buy it in the Oculus store. So if you buy it in Steam, it won't work with the Oculus, apparently, from what I read. So
interesting.
So anyway, you have to buy it in one or the other, depending. I just wanted to put that out there in case we have any Oculus users.
There's some real Cold War stuff going, isn't there? Okay, cool. Well, let's wrap this one up here. And yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you got?
No, that's pretty much it. Just cool. Looking forward to playing it some more, and now I'm really looking forward to playing what you were recommending as well, because
give it a try.
I definitely will, because it's like you said, if it's free. In my experience, it's best to try as many free titles as you can, especially when something really hits the spot for you. Like not everyone's gonna love every single VR experience the same way as someone else, but when you find something that you're like, oh, I know exactly where I'd want to fit this in. when showing someone, like when
Mm-hmm.
demoing. Like my brother actually is going to be coming into town next weekend for the first time in a while, like to play the Vive.
Yeah.
So that sounds like something cool to look into, because I know he'll be looking for those types of experiences. So
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, it kind of opened my eyes to being able to show people, more experiences like this. Whenever you have people over to try VR or the Vive, like I've stayed pretty close to zombie shooters or wave-based shooters, things like that, or the lab. But I think this is a nice addition, and I guess like now even more so since we're talking about it, like the budget cuts demo, and hopefully the full game for that is released soon. And Vertigo is actually what I'm going to focus on next, the full game for that. But yeah, I mean, just being able to show cool experiences like this, I think the replay value, and not that there needs to be any replay value for a free title, but I think it's just cool because there's a great sense of everything, and the polish is great in there too. I don't know where my thought was going, but the polish is fantastic in the game. There's great narration, great storyline, great storytelling.
Very, very cool.
Awesome. Well, guys, we hope you have a fantastic weekend. We will be back on Monday with some Vive and VR news, and I know there was some really interesting stuff that happened, especially with CES going on right now. So we'll make sure that we cover that. We'll digest it, and go over it on Monday. So we are on iTunes, Stitcher, on YouTube. Please make sure you subscribe and like, comment, do all the good stuff. Definitely connect with us. And we love having the conversation on YouTube. So everyone who's been commenting there, we do appreciate it, and hope that we're helping VR kind of reach the next level. We're just trying to do our part in terms of getting this stuff out there. So that being said, we will talk to you guys again very, very soon. Take care.